I mean, at least it drives great. About a year ago, we bought a Macan Electric, Porsche's very first fully electric SUV. We wanted members of our team to live with it every day to find out all the little things you can't when you're just at the dealership on a test drive, just like we do with every vehicle in our one-year road test fleet. If you like the look and vibe of the Macan, you can find plenty to like here, especially if you appreciate the way a car feels from behind the wheel. But one thing you'll hear us mention a lot is price. We spent just shy of 100 grand on this Macan EV, and we have thoughts. We'll tell you the good, the bad, the broken, plus what it's worth after a year of ownership. And most importantly, if you should actually buy one. We're Edmunds, and we test hundreds of cars each year on the road and at our private track, so you get the most trusted reviews. If you want to know which car, truck, or SUV is the best, then stick with us. It all starts with this perfect 3-spoke steering wheel. Like any good Porsche, the Macan EV is excellent to drive.
I mean, yeah, the Macan EV feels great from behind the wheel. It has great throttle response at low to medium speeds. It has tight, accurate steering. And even though it has all-season tires, it has no problem on the tight, hilly roads near my home that can give other cars trouble.
So Porsche does driving dynamics so well that the Macan EV essentially feels and handles exactly the way you would think a Porsche should. So the driving experience is by far the strongest selling point of the Macan EV, though the seats are fantastic too.
But the Macan is also great at the everyday stuff too, even for those that don't really care about steering and handling.
We have rear steering on our Macan EV, and the turning circle on this thing is insane. I mean, it is just so maneuverable. I also really like that the Macan EV doesn't mess around with one pedal mode in its default settings. You don't have a really strong drag brake when you lift off the gas. It's just a really nicely tuned throttle and a really nicely tuned set of brakes. It's so smooth and easy to drive around.
I really like the way our Macan rides over bumps. It's smooth, but still pretty stable. And that's when it's in its default comfort drive mode. And actually you can switch to the sport mode, which firms up the suspension, makes it feel a bit sportier around turns, but it's still smooth. And in fact, I drive around town all the time with the sport mode engaged. Feels like a proper Porsche while still being comfortable.
The driver assists are actually quite good. Smooth acceleration and braking, even in stop and go traffic. And it sees cars early enough so it doesn't freak out if someone cuts you off. And the lane centering is strong as well, which really helps to reduce fatigue on a long drive.
If your car doesn't do those things very well and it's time to get out of it, we have a quick and easy free appraisal tool on our site. Link in the description. Another strong point of the Macan EV, something you really care about in pretty much every electric car, range. We put the Macan EV through the Edmunds EV range test, just like we do with nearly every EV on sale, and the results were impressive. 352 miles on a single charge is a great outcome for a modern EV, and it's well in excess of the Macan's 308-mile EPA estimate. But it's not just the range that's impressive.
The Macan is also really good at adjusting your estimated miles remaining based on how you're driving. I've driven plenty of EVs that have more quoted range that give me more range anxiety, and it's really nice to be able to trust a system like that.
The Macan can also charge super fast at public charging stations, and it comes with a free adapter, so owners can actually charge at most Tesla superchargers too. Another thing we like about the Macan EV, cargo space.
All right, the Macan Electric sloping roofline had me concerned about how much space there'd be in the trunk area, but it's actually pretty roomy for everyday use, and you can fold down the rear seats to open it up even more. One time I did that, I was able to throw in my son's bike without even having to take off the front wheel, which was an unexpected and pleasant surprise.
Bad news for Macan fans, that's where the good stuff ends. One thing that came up frequently among staffers was packaging. For a car that's relatively big on the outside, why isn't there more space inside?
Why is the Macan EV's interior so compromised? It's wider and longer than a Model Y or an Ioniq 5, but the back seat just feels smaller. And when I'm in my normal seating position, even my kid in his booster seat is complaining about legroom in the back. I mean, it's just not going to meet the needs of a family.
And the Macan's greatest strength, that being how it drives, actually not everyone agrees.
Our Macan feels pretty quick from behind the wheel, especially if you're doing a launch while it's in Sport Plus. However, the actual numbers that it puts up, they are not quite as impressive. We brought it to the test track just like we do everything else, and it actually loses out from 0 to 60 to the Hyundai Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6, the Tesla Model Y, and even a Ford F-150 Lightning. Now, I don't street race, but knowing that if you pull up in your $100,000 Porsche next to a $50,000 Kia and you're gonna lose the drag race, that's a bad feeling.
If you're curious how the Macan EV stacks up against its competitors, or you want to see rankings and reviews for just about every vehicle on sale, we've got it all over on the site. We'll even show you the best price. Another thing we don't like, there's no one-pedal driving here. Porsche doesn't offer that in any of their current EVs as of this filming, and it's a philosophical decision on their end. And sure, I can understand maybe it feels more natural to some of them to use the brake and the throttle to slow yourself down and whatnot, but give me the choice. Everything else on this car is a choosable option, from the paint to the wheels to the interior to all these accessories, and to have no ability to use a true one-pedal drive mode is frustrating for a lot of members on our team who enjoy that in other EVs. Okay, mini rant over. Time for a new rant. I mentioned up front that there's an issue with value here. There's a lot of aspects of the Macan EV that just don't feel befitting of a luxury car, and that's before we even get into the matter of price.
There's no 360-degree camera. The tiny sun visors don't extend. There's not even a rear wiper unless you're willing to pay extra for it, and stuff like that shouldn't be extra on a luxury EV like this. The piano black on the interior, after a year, it's all scratched up. It's just really disappointing.
It's a small thing, but the seatbelt buckle is constantly rattling and banging against the B-pillar. I know a lot of other cars have a clip to kind of hold that in place. And another thing that drives me crazy is the buttons in the center stack. They're not real buttons. Like, you press on one and this whole plastic panel moves. And I don't know, like, I guess I'm glad it's not all through the touchscreen, but little things like this, it just feels out of place on a premium vehicle like the Macan EV.
All that would be disappointing even if the Macan EV worked all the time, which it mostly did, but only mostly. We had issues with the tire pressure monitoring system where it would think that a tire change had taken place when in fact no tire change had taken place at all. But you'd have to reset the system to make it go away. We also had issues where it thought that all the tires were low even though they were fine. We also had at least 3 drivers encounter issues with the driver assist systems, which would randomly fail even in clear weather. One person even had the steering wheel fully lock up when they were backing out of the driveway. The last 2 issues fixed themselves by turning the car on and off, but frankly, you shouldn't have to do that on any car, let alone one this expensive. And at one point, the charge port door got completely stuck.
Yeah, I had a problem with our Macan EV. The charge flap door on the driver's side would not open. It's a little bit like on a gas car, you're supposed to press on it, it pops open. Wouldn't do that, even though the car was unlocked. I got frustrated with it. I couldn't figure out any solution on why it wouldn't open. I eventually took it to my local Porsche dealership, talked to the advisor there, and he was actually able to help me out. Like, he knew of a special trick where he would put his pressure on the flap that wouldn't open, but then he'd cycle with the key fob. He'd cycle the car lock and unlock a bunch of times, and eventually that would reset it and it would pop open. So he fixed it, which was great. We never really had that problem again, but at the same time, it was pretty annoying and frustrating to deal with that with a brand new luxury EV.
Thankfully, that didn't cost us anything. The dealership took care of it free of charge, but still, you shouldn't have to deal with that with a brand new luxury car. Like our BMW iX. That's a comfortable luxury EV that we had in our fleet for over a year. We even put a few thousand extra miles on it, and it costs less than this Macan EV. 0 issues, none. And what makes those maintenance issues and those disappointments so hard to swallow is what we paid for the thing. Nearly $100,000. So, what's this thing worth after a year and 13,000 miles? So glad you asked. How about $52,000? Because that's the offer we just got. That's a steep depreciation curve. It's worse than both the BMW i5 and Kia EV9. Now, we do know that EVs tend to depreciate a bit more, but still, that one stings. And if you want to get a quick offer for your car, we've got a free tool for that on the site. And for us, the amount we spent on this Macan really feels like a stretch for what we got.
Every single time I got onto the Macan, it felt less and less like a vehicle worthy of a 6-figure price tag. There's the cheap buttons, the hard plastics, or the fact that this thing lacks basic features like a 360-degree camera or a rear wiper. I mean, there's a lot of good in this car for 60, 70, maybe even 80 grand, but $100,000 for this?
Before we wrap up, if you like the way we buy our own test cars to get real ownership experience, or if our videos are helpful to you in any way, a like and subscribe go a long way. And if we missed anything, or you have ideas for future videos, tell us down below in the comments. We read them all. Here's the thing. Edmunds has actually owned a Macan before. Way back in 2015, we bought a first-generation gas-powered Macan, and everyone on our staff loved it. In fact, one person loved it so much that when it was time to sell, they actually plunked down their own money and bought it and drove it as their personal vehicle. Speaking of, I actually own a first-gen Macan myself, and I can confirm firsthand it does a much better job at the luxury performance vehicle mission. Now remember, there's still a lot to like about the Macan EV. We love the way it drives, the way it feels, and the efficiency is superb. If we had this kind of money to plunk down in an EV, sure, we might buy it over some competitors, but we'd make sure to check the option boxes for a 360 camera and a rear wiper. It's a great car to drive and a great EV, but as a luxury car, we hoped for better.